Taking care of our mental health is on a lot of our minds these days, but finding a therapist who can get us in or even take our insurance can be a struggle. Rich Brooks is our tech guy from Flight New Media, and he's kind of been looking into some online options for us. And I just mentioned a couple hurdles people are facing when they're looking for a therapist, but why is it so hard for people who are looking to find mental health counseling right now?
I think there was a waiting line even before COVID, but COVID just made it even more difficult because all of a sudden people were dealing with a lot more stress and anxiety in the political situation here in the US, and I think it just caused a lot of people to need to want to see a therapist, and suddenly they couldn't get in. And so that was like one of the big things that was going on, that suddenly now it's difficult, especially if you need special type of therapy. Maybe you want couples therapy or you want a special type of therapist. The line can take months to get to see someone.
Yeah, so I'm assuming then that's part of why we've had this shift to online therapy?
I think that's part of it, and part of it is just that during COVID, most therapists shut down all of their in-person sessions. So all of a sudden, we had to move online. And I believe before, there was a lot of concern that teletherapy really wasn't real therapy. But when we didn't have a chance and people used it, they said, actually, this works pretty well. So suddenly, now the stigma of teletherapy has been removed.
Yeah, so what are we finding are the benefits of online therapy?
Yeah, great question, because there are a lot of benefits for sure. And one is accessibility, right? So you think about the fact that anywhere you can log in, you can have a session.
Right.
And in Maine, we have a lot of rural areas. And so there have been times when people had a longer drive time than they actually spent in the therapist office. So suddenly therapy becomes a lot more accessible for a lot more people. So those have all been some of the big benefits, and I think people just realize that you can get good talk therapy from sitting in front of your computer and just being able to talk to a therapist.
Right, well, we know with the good comes the bad. What are the downsides of online therapy?
I certainly think that certain types of visual cues are no longer visible, even if we're on a Zoom call together. You know, you see the face, but not necessarily the whole body. And a lot of therapists have reported that for younger children or for people suffering from ADHD, this kind of therapy is not really conducive to a good outcome. There are also some concerns because besides your local therapist offering online or Zoom therapy, teletherapy, there are big companies that are offering it, and they have hundreds or thousands of therapists, but not, as it turns out, not all those therapists are licensed in your state. So there's some concerns around that as well, something you have to dig into. And then I think for some people, there's always the fear that an app or a website or a video conference could be hacked. So there's some privacy or security concerns in there as well.
Yeah, so what does online therapy, what does that look like? You know, is it always Zoom?
I think that's what people assume, but a lot of online therapy could be just audio, like literally phone calls. And then some people are actually getting therapy solely through text, which doesn't work for everybody, but for some people, that's exactly the kind of help they need.
Yeah, okay, so if people want to take advantage of this, where can they find online therapists?
You know, obviously you can start with Google. I always recommend in a service like this that you also might get some recommendations from friends and ask them, you know, if they have somebody who they know. There's also some mega sites out there that do reviews of online therapists. I mean, of course, there's reviews for everything, right? So Psychology Today and Verywell Mind and Good Therapy are all sites you can go to, and you can search based on what your needs are, your location, and they can start to find therapists that line up for you that are taking on patients. And then my recommendation is talk to a few of them, interview them, make sure that there's some sort of connection and that you feel comfortable talking to this person, and then ultimately you're going to choose somebody. And you might also, you mentioned insurance, that's another good point, so maybe talk to your insurance company. They may have a list of approved providers as well.
Yeah, well, definitely an important tool, and great that more and more people are getting access to it with things like online therapy. Rich Brooks with Flight New Media with us. Thanks so much again for coming in. Stay with us. 207 is back right after this.